Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Beyond the Varley. My name is Natalie, and today we'll be looking at Jessica Thalmann's show, Two Truths and a Lie. So before we delve into the artwork, let's do a little bit of a recap on the artist herself. So Thalmann is primarily a photo-based artist. However, she's really drawn to the limits and boundaries of the photographic medium. So she questions what photography can and cannot accomplish, specifically in its inability to depict truth and reality due to its flatness and two-dimensionality. And so she meditates on the photographic medium by creating a series of digital and physical manipulations. So these can take the form of rips, tears, folds, and cuts. By reconstructing these traditional photographs, Thalmann is able to put these images into a new context. And so the images are recontextualized. And by doing this, she's exploring the boundaries between object and image. Now, how does a photograph be transformed into a sculpture? Or in other words, how does a two-dimensional image become a three-dimensional object? Now, specifically in this show, Thalmann focuses on the relationships between photography and architecture. Now, perhaps as viewers, we can ask ourselves how these transformations and manipulations shift our perception of the imagery that's depicted in these photographs. So as we take a look at some of the work in this show, we'll examine how the stylistic elements are tied to this larger conceptual scheme. Today I'm going to be focusing on the use of dimensions in Thalmann's work. So while I mentioned that she is primarily a photo-based artist, she really investigates how photography and architecture can simultaneously coexist and conflict. How does she demonstrate this in her work? Well, let's take a look. So when we encounter any artwork as viewers, we can first start by making our own observations. So what do you see here? What colors, forms, shapes, and materials can you pick up on? Now this piece here is titled Elevations Travertine. And it's obviously a sculptural artwork, and it's large enough that I have to move around it to experience all of the jagged edges, cracks, and crevices. Now we can also take note of the negative spaces that exist within this piece, or as Thalmann likes to call them, voids. And they give the piece a greater sense of an interior and an exterior, a greater sense of occupying space like that of a building or a structure. And this almost reminds me of a large piece of rubble or a rock. So what is most interesting about this work is the contrast between what first appears to be this dense, heavy object is in actual fact made entirely out of lightweight paper. And so here, the two-dimensional photograph is given three-dimensional form. And pictured here are the photographs of the Getty Museum, and specifically the travertine stone that the exterior of the building is composed of. So we can draw upon our own observations to make interpretations of the artwork when the artist is not present to give us that information directly. So we may not know that the travertine stone represents the remnants of a past civilization and the ruins of a future one. And it's Thalmann's way of creating this bridge between the past, present, and future. So let's take a look now at these two pieces here titled Line of Sight 1 and 2. And so for some context, these are photographs of the Met Breuer, which is an art museum in New York City. So at first glance, it may appear simply as a close-up shot that captures the architecture of the building. But upon closer inspection, we can pick up on manipulations within the image. It resembles a photo collage. And still, it's tricky to tell whether these are digital or physical manipulations. The more you look at it, the more disorienting the image becomes. And Thalmann here plays on the illusion of what is real versus what is constructed. So another way to learn more information about an artwork is to consider the title. Now, line of sight draws upon this notion of what is visible. And Thalmann here plays upon that which lies outside of our line of sight by experimenting with shadows and depth in a really interesting way that an ordinary photograph without these manipulations is unable to capture. So in returning to this idea of dimensions, while these two pieces remain two-dimensional artworks, the manipulation of depth is quite deceiving and causes the viewer to contemplate our perception of space and understanding of spatial relationships. Now, these are just a few examples of how Thalmann explores photography in her practice by bridging various stylistic techniques to investigate the relationships between photography and architecture. Thank you all for watching and joining me here today. This program is made possible by Varley Mackay Art Foundation, Canada Summer Jobs, and TD Bank.